Welcome to the Dark Stream, Vox Day, voxday.net, and unauthorized.tv. I don't know how optimistic I am that we're going to be able to complete this part 3, because I think we need at least half an hour. But let's hope that third time is the charm. Personally, the devs assure me that this is not the case. Personally, I can't help but think that it has something to do with Owen logging off of his live stream. But why that would disrupt DLive doesn't make any sense. So who knows? Anyhow, we've got new servers ordered, etc., etc. We'll get it sorted out one of these days. So we're talking about female solipsism and male Zifogyny. We're focused on the male Zifogyny section, and we were talking about the various elements that reliably go into male failure with women. Now, one thing that you notice, a good way to learn about success and failure is to look at people who are successful, but also people who are failures. What do they do? What are the common patterns that you see over and over again, right? And one of the places that you see these patterns over and over again, but with false consequences, false results, is the movies. So, for example, we talked about the previous episode. We talked about the idea that attraction is generated by the level of attraction from the other party. It's nonsense. It has nothing to do with it. It might make a difference if you have multiple options and you're already interested and already attracted. Yeah, maybe somebody who's demonstrated that they're willing to make more of a commitment than the other possibilities. It's something that's marginal. Sam says that doesn't even make sense. Well, maybe it doesn't make sense when you stop and think about it, and yet that is a basic fundamental assumption that most people have who are persistent failures with women. Most unsuccessful guys will actually appeal to how much they love the other person in an attempt to get the other person to love them back. It doesn't work that way. Love is a one-way street. If it happens to be reciprocated, you're fortunate. But there's no direct and causal connection between the two. That's why they talk about the lover and the beloved. Sam's right. He says, I really want to buy this house for 100. Why won't you sell it to me? Yeah, I mean, it's the Guardians of the Galaxy. I think the second one actually has a bit of a funny bit with the raccoon who can't understand that he's not allowed to steal things. He says, well, what if I want it? The policeman says, still a crime. But what if I want it more than the guy who already has it? Still a crime, and keep in mind, I'm not coming out of left field here. There's hit pop songs that reflect this all the time. There was it's kind of ironic given that I'm pretty sure he's gay, but Shawn Mendes has a song, I can treat you better than he can, blah, 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 blah. It's all that nonsense. doesn't matter. She's not attracted to you, you know. To use my previous example, I don't care how well a gay gentleman is willing to treat me. That doesn't make me want to. That doesn't make me attracted to him. If that scenario applies to you, then obviously it applies to the women that you're interested in too. Another thing is falsehood. And by falsehood, I don't necessarily mean lying. I'm not really talking about verbal falsehoods or that sort of thing. I'm talking a better term actually, and this is something that the pickup artists talk about, is incongruity. There are certain forms of incongruity that interest women. You know, I think it eventually got to the point where it annoyed Space Bunny, but you know, one thing that I noticed that women always found kind of fascinating is guys who were wealthy and successful, but didn't necessarily, you know, sent the opposite signal, you know, and then would just, you know, drop it on someone at the end. So it's not all incongruity, but what I mean by the problem, where the failure of incongruity comes in, is when a guy is misrepresenting who he really is in terms of his level of self-confidence. It's less about the honesty of your job and so forth. What I'm thinking about here is, if you've ever noticed the terms that gammas give themselves on social media, it's always something like, you know, the real Socrates, King so-and-so, Jonathan Rex. I mean, we've seen so many gammas go through the blog, and they always had these grandiose names. And I suspect that if we recognize the pattern consciously, there's a very good chance that women recognize the pattern subconsciously, intuitively. So maybe you know, a false mask of confidence is something that women don't like. It's something that men who persistently fail tend to exhibit. You know, it's hard to explain. Like, why is it that a you know, decent, relatively normal gamma freaks and turns off women when some, you know, loser drug using scumbag who lies about the fact that he has a job doesn't bother them at all? I haven't figured that one out. Maybe some of the women here could weigh in on that one. You know, why is it that if you don't have a job and you, you know, don't have anything material to offer, except for just swaggering around like you think you're the, you think you're the on top of the world, why is that attractive when somebody who is putting on a false front about self-confidence isn't? I don't know. But what I do know, Swedish Trash Man says, probably the same reason men are drawn to crazy chicks who are certain to ruin their lives. Yeah, it could be, I suppose. Bogatir says, damn it, was hoping to hear an answer there. But again, this is the thing I want you to focus on is stop worrying about understanding the why. You know, when I was in junior high, it was really easy for me to just sit there and analyze because I wasn't in the game and I knew it. You know, I was younger than everybody. I was smaller than everybody. I was smarter than everybody. I was not popular, and it was not a mystery as to why I wasn't. You know, I mean, the funny thing is, looking back, I was actually treated pretty well by most of the guys, and you know, all the bullying stuff was, you know, in elementary school and stuff. Thank you. They call me Cordell. He sends us the first super chat and says, "Hail Dark Lord." Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, I could really use a little encouragement after my cartoon defeat at the hands of Captain Europa today. If you've read Arctoons and Alt Hero, then you know why. But anyhow, it was actually very advantageous to me through that, you know, period, through all the way through ninth grade, through the summer before 10th grade. It was very advantageous to me to essentially be completely out of the game and aware of it, because it allowed me to just observe without having my observations colored by my emotions. You know, I think it's very hard for most people. In fact, I bet most of you, when you're thinking about these concepts about why do men fail with women, you're thinking about them in terms of your specific past failures with a particular woman or women, right? It's not the right way to go about this. You know, this is not about, gee, what could I have done differently? What did I do wrong? How might my life be different if I'd, you know, taken a different path, etc. That's not the point. The point is understanding the patterns and seeing where your own patterns are in keeping with those that are reliably unsuccessful, hit or miss, reliably successful. Because these patterns do exist. I'm making nothing up. At most, I'm labeling things that already exist, that can be observed, in your life, my life, the lives of people who've never heard of any of us. It's just human behavior tends to appear in patterns. We tend to do the same sorts of things over and over and over again. We make the same type of mistakes. We have the same sort of successes. And so, you know, presenting that false form of confidence is worse than having no confidence at all. You know, having no confidence may not be attractive, but that fake, blustering, grandiose nonsense is actively unattractive and clearly one of the Zifogynystic patterns. You know, I mean, I don't know how to tell you to not be grandiose. You know, it's not something that I'm personally prone to, despite the fact that some of my critics desperately wish it was. You know, I think there's a line from Alt Hero where it says, it's not arrogance to simply speak the truth. It's not. But it is grandiosity to be attempting to paint a completely false picture of yourself in order to achieve some nonsensical goals that frankly are not very realistic. You know? let's see. Another one that I wanted to, there's another point that I wanted to touch on, and then we'll take some questions. Um, Barking Bear says, streams in front of library green screen. Yeah, it's kind of funny that, I mean, when you look at my life, it's really kind of amazing how many easily verifiable things people will just flat out attempt to deny. Oh well, Space Bunny's not your wife. She's too attractive. She doesn't exist. That's not your library. It's a green screen picture. I mean, come on, it's just absurd. You know. Horatio says, I wonder why so many men were never sat down and talked to when they were young about these things. Most men have no idea about any of this. Well, it's very difficult to, because, first of all, most people are not, most of the successful guys are naturals. So their advice is useless. Be yourself. I'm awesome, so I just be myself, and hey, it works. Well, of course it does. You're awesome, right? I don't think it's just boomer dads. I mean, boomer dads didn't help, no question. And gamma dads, of course, are just destructive to their sons. But, I try to talk to younger guys about some of this stuff. And most young men just have no interest in listening, or simply just don't, just won't take the advice. I mean, the standard that I usually hear from young guys is, well, it's different now. It's totally different now. I'm like, no, it's not. You can read The Tale of Genji, and if you do what Genji does, it'll probably work. If you do what the Gamma does, you'll get shot down. Deplore Bear says, my dad was a great guy, but his advice on these things would have been worse than useless. He lucked or prayed into everything he ever got. Yeah, and that you can't get good advice there either. But and actually, this is another point in the pattern. Guys who are unsuccessful refuse to modify their behavior. They just will not modify their behavior. Why? I don't know. It's never made any sense to me. It's like, look, just do this. Oh, but that won't work today. Well, try it anyhow. Oh, well, I gave it a half-ass attempt once and it didn't work, so I'll go back to Tinder or whatever. I mean, it's almost comical. But in fairness to them, the same thing was true when I was young. When you would talk to guys who were unsuccessful, they never modified what they did. They'd see a girl that they liked. You're like, oh, she's really pretty. So you'd say, go talk to her. Oh, yeah, I couldn't do that. No. What do you mean you couldn't do it? Walk up to her and say, hello, I'm so-and-so. So I think that failure avoidance is, and also a degree of self-consciousness is two more Zifogynystic elements. I mean, it was, to me, it was a little bit ironic because I couldn't think of anything easier. than going up and talking to attractive women. I mean, there's a funny picture. I should look it up at some point in time, but that would kind of illustrate this. I mean, some of my friends and I, we would pick girls up not to like because we were interested in them because we wanted to date them or something, but just because we had a big group of guys and we only had a few girls, so we'd pick up more girls just to round out the numbers. It wasn't difficult. This one picture that I was thinking was there was a big birthday party for me, and we were about to go over to the club that my friends owned, and there were like 3 or 4 very pretty girls sitting at the next table. They were just about done with their dinner. So, and one of my friends took a picture of me talking to the 4 of them, just basically inviting them to come along to to join the birthday party. And they did. I never spoke to them again. I have no idea what their names are. I mean, all I know is they came along with us, and that's it was my birthday, so that's pretty much all I remember from the night. But that's how easy it is. Just do what you're doing and invite them to come along. Women are very, very, very passive compared to men. There's a fantastic tweet that Milo posted on Gab, and it's this girl who is apparently destroying some sort of Linux video channel or something. I've never heard of it. I don't pay any attention to it. But what's funny is that she was talking about how it was just this onerous workload. And it was like 2 or 3 tweets, 2 Instagram posts, and 2 short TikTok videos a day. Her whole job involved something like 7 social media posts a day. That's nothing, right? But just because she was expected to do it, suddenly it was this onerous thing and she couldn't do it, and dun, 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 dun. That's part of the female passivity, right? And so, and what is it that women want? Well, I don't know what women in the collective necessarily want, but I know what young women want, and young women want to have fun. They want to be entertained. These days, they want to do stuff that is exciting enough to put on Instagram. How many of you guys who are young enough to be in the dating market, how many of you guys spend any time thinking about how is she going to put this on Instagram? What can we do that she can put on Instagram? Because that's what interests her. Right? I mean, for crying out loud, if you're a predator, freaking study your prey. This is not difficult. Yet, most guys don't do that. Most guys think in terms of, well, what would I like to do? It's not about that. Again, I'm not saying that you need to be a juggler and a clown and be responsible for entertaining her all the time. That's no way to live your life. But we're talking here about patterns of failure, and these patterns of failure tend to fail pretty close to the start, pretty close to the beginning. Okay, I don't think this is going to work anywhere but Sweden, Norway, and possibly Maine. But Trash Pants says, took a girlfriend in my teens to a place where she could ride a moose. Now, that's going on Instagram. That might actually go viral on Instagram. And frankly, you could probably get my wife to go with you on a date to ride a moose. I think you could get about 90% of all women to go. If you said, hey, do you want to go ride a moose? Most of them are going to say, hell yeah. And then they're like, wait, can you really do that? But the point is that Aha says, would definitely do that. You know, the point is, you know, come up, think, okay, we're talking about Zifogyny. So the Zifogynystic pattern would be take no account of what the motivations of the opposite sex are and pay no regard to what they actually like to do when you're suggesting something. Silent Draco does raise the problem. Space Bunny would then come home with a pet moose. Yeah, that I have no doubt. Seriously, it is unreal how animals love that woman. I mean, I would literally have no concern whatsoever if we're wandering through the woods and suddenly this starving grizzly bear, you know, pops up. You know, probably what would happen is that I would be sent to go and buy steaks, and she would pet the bear and console its hurt feelings or something. It's really unreal. But here's the thing. You know, literally my second date with Space Bunny was taking the dogs for a walk. You know, would that work? You know, would that be exciting for your average woman? Probably not. But, you know, if you're interested in a horse girl, invite her to go riding. Invite her to go to one of those jumping events. They love that stuff. You know? And so, you know, break the pattern of, gee, I have no idea what to do. You know, they literally tell you what they want to do if they have social media. You know, go on to Instagram. What do they do? You know, what are all their you know, it was kind of funny. I have absolutely no idea why, but because I'm not on Instagram. I mean, I have an Instagram account, but you can see from my Instagram account, I'm not on Instagram much. Somehow, I inadvertently clicked and ended up on Anna Kournikovaa's Instagram page. I ended up scrolling through it a bit because for a second, I genuinely thought I was on my wife's page. I mean, as far as I can tell, Anna Kournikovaa and Space Bunny live pretty much the same life because both their Instagrams are dog, 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 dog. And the best part was that what's his name? Enrique Iglesias makes has about as much of a presence on his wife's Instagram page as I have on my wife's. There's literally one picture of somebody holding a dog, and you could just kind of see part of the face, and you're like, "Oh, that's that singer guy." So here's the thing: if you saw a page like that, I mean, let's say that Anna Kournikova is not a world famous tennis star who's either married to or as good as to a world famous pop singer. But if you see a page that is full of dogs, you know what? Invite her to the dog show. You know, believe me, when we go to a dog show, we're there all day. You know, I consider it a near miracle when we managed to get out of there without acquiring any additional dogs. But the point is that find out. Aha says, Space Bunny's Instagram is really fun and beautiful. Lots of animals. Oh yeah, I mean, I'm not kidding. We have 4 fox cubs living in our backyard. I give it about a 30% chance that at least one of them will be living in the house by the end of December. I mean, we hope not, but you know, it's just crazy. But you know, the hedgehogs in the garden, the foxes in the trees, you know, it's definitely a life that is full of animals. Fortunately, I like animals, so I mean, I'm not, you know, crazy about them or anything, but you know, otherwise we'd be pretty damn incompatible. But you get my point. Is this is true. Cliff Cosmic wants to point out we've never seen Vox Day and Enrique Iglesias in the same room together. This is true. However, I think if you happen to observe the fact that he's considerably better looking than I am, and I lift considerably more weight, I think we can safely rule that one out. Space Bunny can give Anna Kournikova a run for money, I'm certain, but I think we'd have to give Enrique the edge there, huh? Anyhow, the thing is, break your negative patterns. Pay attention to what your negative patterns. When things don't go well, see if there is something in common with your past approaches, attitudes, and activities. And the thing is, you can't tell people that you're interesting. You have to be interesting. You can't impress people by telling them that you're awesome. You have to be awesome. You can't act like you're cool. You have to be cool. You know, so you know, all the attempts at I've been reading some Raymond Chandler recently, and it's just painful. You know, all the snappy, witty dialogue, that's loser talk. You know, that whole snappy comeback, the repartee. You know, that's not real. You know, don't let your perceptions be misled by the fact that you've been inundated in bad information by Hollywood and to a lesser extent by the books that you read. So the whole from the book, the Rhett Butler and Scarlett O'Hara thing. It's not real. It's Exterminator Bear says, my standard behavior was always disassociate. That's only self-sabotaging. If I could convince younger me anything, it would be a miracle. Well, yeah. I mean, disassociation in a social context is mostly just fear. Most people, and this is the difference between an actual Sigma and somebody who likes the idea of Sigma but has absolutely nothing in common with it, is you can't pretend to enjoy solitude. You can't pretend to be, to genuinely prefer your own company. I was talking to a friend the other day, and I made a comment about how Space Bunny could be challenging in some ways, and I said, but that's to be expected. I'm not at all easy to be around. And he said, well, what do you mean? I think you're pretty easygoing. I said, yeah, every woman dreams of a guy who will ignore her while he writes 900-page books. Right? It takes an unusual woman. It takes a very self-possessed woman who doesn't need to be entertained by a clown to be happy in that situation. Of course, we all know what she does with her time. She collects animals. I mean, the kids joke about, they joke about the fact that there's more animals than I realize that we have. I mean, it's entirely possible. We've got foxes living in the attic for all I know, or hedgehogs living in the basement. I probably wouldn't notice. But the thing is, if you're going to find someone who fits you like a puzzle, you have to be you have to be aware of who you are, and you also have to be able to understand that the person you're looking for is not someone like you. It's someone who is complementary to you. And that's one thing that I think that might be another point of failure, but I'm not sure, because I think it can work for some people. But a lot of guys look for women who like to do the same thing that they do. But the reality is, and that can work. There's a pretty little blonde on the England national team, and she's a really good defender, and just frankly one of the best passers, male or female, that I've ever seen play. I mean, her passing completion percentage is absolutely unreal. Especially, it's really noticeable when you watch women's soccer, because the passing tends to be so bad. So when you see somebody who basically never makes a bad pass, it really stands out. Anyhow, her boyfriend, a longtime boyfriend, they've known each other since they were 16. He's a professional soccer player himself. And there was an interview with her. And She said, "Yeah, they say it's good if you have like other interests and stuff, but to be honest, all we're really interested in is football." And so basically, we play it, we watch it, and we analyze it. You know, I mean, what a great relationship. You know, they're doing what they love, and they're able to share that together. But I think that the complementary style relationship is much more likely, just because the statistics indicate it has to be that way. Men and women tend to have different interests. So, do your different interests complement each other, or do they conflict with each other? Um, Sam says women like to do what you like if they like you. To be honest, not really. Um, you know, my my dad once observed that my mother liked to go hunting with him until they got married, and then she never went hunting again. So you need to distinguish between uh, I'm willing to do this with you so that I can spend time with you. You know, Space Bunny joined my health club so that we could work out together. Because I spent a lot of time working out then, and that was a good way for us to continue to hang out more. But but generally speaking, oh, I'm gonna play ASL because I'm gonna play war games because my boyfriend likes to play war games. Yeah, it's not gonna happen. You know, um, maybe if you like a summer day on the lake on the boat or on the jet ski. Yeah, I think that's a little bit more likely. But again, the point is stop thinking about yourself. Stop thinking about other people judging you. Stop thinking, stop being self-conscious and being embarrassed. Oh no, what are people going to think if I get shot down? Nobody cares. At most, they might be mildly amused. They might think that she's stupid. It doesn't matter. You know, figure out what it is that you want and pursue it. And pursuit means studying and paying attention to what the interests and motivations of others are. Remember, this takes us back to the original point. Women aren't like men. If you think a woman is going to respond in a given situation the way that you would, you're almost certainly wrong. So, anyhow, I'd, I think we've covered enough of them. I mean, obviously, when I write the SSH book, I'll be a lot more specific and hopefully articulate. But I think that we've covered the basic points by now, which is that if you are regularly experiencing a lack of success with the opposite sex, it is probably the result of a repeated series of behavioral patterns that are in your way. I think you've told the story, but may I ask how you and SB began talking? Yeah, it's very simple. I had a mohawk. I walked past her. She came up and I don't know if she tapped me on the shoulder or whatever, said, "Excuse me." And I turned around and said, "What?" And she said, "Oh, nothing." And I'm like, "No, what?" She said, "Can I touch the side of your head?" I said, sure. I'm thinking, okay, pretty slender blonde, go for it. We just started talking and never, never stopped. Um, yeah, technically, it was a cold approach by her, if you want to be technical. Um, but you can't wait for that kind of stuff. You know, um, two of my good friends were two of my good friends were very, very good looking, and they never developed any skills at approaching women because they never had to. You know, um, now yes, I didn't have to initiate the initial conversation with her, but I still had to, you know, get the phone number, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, all that sort of thing. Of course, I also almost completely screwed it up the first time I called her, but that's a story for another time. Giuseppe says, should I get a mohawk? Uh, can you grow a mohawk? Anyhow, I wouldn't generally advise it, you know. Anyhow, I've got a little time. How much time have we got here? Yeah, I've got about 10 minutes. So if anyone has any questions they want to ask, especially about uh, Zifogyny, potential negative patterns of behavior, um, stuff that's on topic, um, things that you are doing that you think might be a problem or might not, go ahead and fire away. If you only catch the fish that hop in the boat, you're stuck with whatever happens to hop in instead of the fish you necessarily wanted. Yes, that's true. Um, one of the things I always find interesting, whenever you see a really good looking guy with a less attractive woman, it's almost invariably the situation that he's the type of guy who's just always accustomed to being approached by women. And of course, the most attractive women generally don't don't pursue men because for the same reason they're used to being pursued, right? Venomous says, "How come when I ask to touch a random woman's head, they freak out? The game is rigged." Because women are not men. A guy's not concerned about it, but a woman is. Although, you could always just say, "Oh, you've got such pretty hair. Can I run my fingers through it?" Maybe it'll work. Pigeon says, "Should a man ever get back together with an ex?" If there's no, potentially. There's couples that have gotten back together and worked out. Sometimes you're just too young. Sometimes, you're just too immature. Um, Sometimes life gets in the way. There's no reason why you shouldn't be open to it, if as long as there's no bitterness, or it's not like just um, you got dumped by somebody else and so you're desperate to settle on the rebound. Um, Bear Tank says, "How important is the state of mind when asking a girl out?" Well, I think it's extremely important because uh, if you're not at the point of it being essentially automatic, uh, you're probably going to screw up and look ridiculous. You know, um, you know, do you maybe, if you don't want to, it's okay. But do you I don't know, maybe want to? Of course they say no. You know, the correct way is just to say, hey, I'm going to go do this awesome thing on Friday. You want to come along? Yeah. More often than not, if you're even remotely attractive to them, they'll say, sure. You know, I mean, as much as guys would like to imagine that when they ask out a girl, she's going, oh, yes. Oh, thank God. I've dreamed of this day. That's not actually the ideal reaction. The ideal reaction is a faintly surprised, yeah, sure. Sounds great. You know? Um, what difference have you noticed between Delta girls and Sigma girls? There's no difference. Is it mostly that? Okay, stop being retarded. The sociosexual hierarchy refers to men. It does not refer to women. There are no alpha females. There are no sigma females. There are no delta females. Doesn't work like that. Female behavioral patterns exist, but they are generally non-hierarchical. If you want to see the difference, if you want to understand why I say there's no, the female hierarchy doesn't really exist, or it's too shifting and dynamic to be worth studying, go watch a group of women trying to do something. And then compare it to a group of men trying to do it. Men form their hierarchy, and then boom, they get it done. Women just talk a lot, Let's see here. Sad with 40 plus women thinking their occupational status means they should get a high quality man. They're making the same mistake that the male failures do. They're judging men by their own standards. Well, I want a high quality, I want a man who's got a good job. Meanwhile, the guy's going, I want a woman who looks great in yoga pants. Hey, that yoga instructor who makes minimum wage looks great. I wonder if she'll go out with me. You couldn't care less. The average guy couldn't care less what a woman does. What role do you think women have in being to blame for the failure to find a man in today's world? Do they have less responsibility? I find these questions irrelevant. That's, in my opinion, that is, in the context we're talking about, that's a Zifogynistic pattern right there. Well, it's women's fault. It's not. Who cares? The macro is irrelevant when it comes to your personal situation. There are plenty of good women out there. Cactus Eater Bear says, people aren't as interested in the female SSH as they think they are. They're not interested in it at all. It's the same smart boy thing that personally I think it's the same childish urge that you see a kid at a wedding do when he sees somebody get up and tell a joke at the microphone, and then he goes up and says exactly the same joke in the microphone, and then doesn't understand why he doesn't get a laugh. It's like the same people that are like, well, I define ninth generation war as, blah, blah, blah. Not that anyone ever asked them. Horatius14 says, you're right, was just curious. Yeah. I mean, so much of, because I was doing alpha game and that sort of thing, I'm used to getting questions from people. And most of them are ludicrously self-obsessed. You know, what do you think I am? Read this wall of text about a bunch of things from my life that even my mother doesn't care about. What do you think I am? I don't care. And the fact that you're willing to waste this much time on this tells me that you're probably a self-centered, low social rank guy who doesn't get a lot of attention from women. You know? Why can I say that? Because that's not how that's not a positive thought or behavioral pattern. Let's see. Working out, grooming, dressing well, and not being addicted to pornos puts you ahead of 90% of men. Maybe, I have no idea. Vox, there's a woman that justified her sister as desirable based on her career path of physician, told her men don't care you have a job. Yeah, that's correct, especially because she's going to be massively in debt. You know? I mean, even if a woman has high status, even if she's like, say, like there's a pair of these, there's a pair of young Italian princesses that are pretty attractive. But here's the thing: if they weren't cute blondes, nobody would care. You know? Yeah, nobody cares about the two English princesses. Was it Beatrice and whatever? They've got massive social status and plenty of money. Nobody cares. You know. Yeah, Sam points out there's a hypergamous where all the dweebs like the strong, independent female mouse. Well, yeah, there's certainly plenty of loser guys who like the idea of being supported by a woman. You know? I mean, that's the African behavioral pattern. I'm a lion, man. I'm a lion. I need my ladies to do the hunting. I've got important things to do. I need my pleasures. Yeah. Plenty of guys growing up on strong warrior women in fiction. Well, yeah, but they're pretty much going to be the kind of guys that you see at comic book stores and science fiction conventions. You know? Artiste once did the math on the value of a beautiful virgin and came up with tens of millions of dollars. Well, heck, they they can make that with that NIL stuff when they're in college. You know? Um, yeah, Inquisitor Bear says, warrior women are hot if they're hot. Yeah, I mean, if you draw pictures of pretty women, I mean, we literally do that with our comics, right? But it's not, nobody is attracted to Dynamique because she's physically strong. You know, they're attracted to Dynamique because she's got a great body, she's got a pretty face, and if you have a certain bent of mind. You know, I mean, of all, I will admit that of all my female Arctoons creations, I am probably the most partial to Dynamique. You know, just her her relentless self-absorption makes me laugh. You know, yeah, and that's another thing too, is that, you know, it's people like, they do like to be liked. They don't like to be used. You know, it's helpful if you genuinely like them. It doesn't mean that you have to like idolize them or even take them seriously. You know, but if you like them, they can tell. If you're bitter about them, they can tell. If you're twisted up with anger and rage and hate with them, they can tell. Jess Ludwig says, nobody would have cared about Buffy the Vampire Slayer if she were played by Whoopi Goldberg. This is definitely true. There's no question about that. But here's the good news, is that if you've been sabotaging yourself for years because you have, you know, been caught in a set of negative behavioral patterns, there's hope for you. You know, look honestly at yourself. Don't be defensive. You know, ask your male and female friends, and I mean friends, not like, you know, people that you're secretly interested in, but just friends. You know, just ask them. You know, especially if you can find somebody who's kind of like superficially, physically on your level. Say, you know, what is it do you think that makes that guy attractive to women? See what they say. You know, this is not rocket science, and it's been around for thousands of years before we came around. It'll be around for thousands of years after we're gone. It's human behavior. So, anyhow, one last thing I should mention, as long as we're talking about attractive girls, My Sister Suprema, written by the legend Chuck Dixon and illustrated and colored by Anthony Gonzalez Clark, is actually available in print directly from the Archaven store, and it should be on, if you're in the US. If you're outside the US, it should be on Amazon and other places soon. I thought I had something else to announce, but I can't remember what it was, so we won't worry about it. Anyhow, I hope this has been helpful. I'm Vox Day, and this is the Dark Stream.